This game is just, it's a blur.
Yeah, why is it a blur? Lots of players, yourself included, have incredible recall. It's my favorite thing about this show.
Like, I remember the moment, obviously, but I don't remember it. Like, I don't have full picture in my mind of what actually happened, and maybe I tried to not think about it. That's why I'm like subconsciously blocking it out of my mind. I think this was the first time that I single-handedly lost my team or my teammates something really important. Like, sure, we all had bad games in Worlds here and there, or bad games in MSI, you know. But this was by far the biggest mistake.
It's 2019 in St. Louis, where back-to-back LCS Champions Team Liquid are facing off against TSM in the LCS Spring Finals. TSM's bet on Zven, a decorated AD carry from Europe, has not paid off. After replacing North America's greatest AD carry Doublelift, Zven has fallen far short of expectations, as they failed to reach the finals for the first and second times in franchise history. Now in spring 2019, Zven seems to have found his confidence once again, a fact he makes known to his opponents from the moment he steps onto the final stage. He taunts his Danish counterpart Jensen during the opening ceremony, then taunts him again in Champion Select, hovering Ekko as a nod to Jensen's infamous finals misplay 2 years prior. Zven's boldness continues into a decisive Game 5, where TSM holds a substantial lead. He heads out onto the map ahead of his teammates, looking to become the first player to ever win a title in both Europe and North America. With all the confidence in the world, Zven steps out into the river alone.
Quicksilver, Sash, he is down, he is shut down.
What is he doing?
Where were you at career-wise in 2017?
It was after our three-peat in G2, same roster we had in 16 Worlds. Part of me felt like stacking domestic trophies wasn't enough at that point.
So me and Zven had won the LEC for the third consecutive split in a row. And, I thought I'd be more comfortable changing something if he tagged along, but I didn't want to force him into anything. And I just suggested to him, I told him, like, hey, like, I'm going to go to NA, like, very certainly. Do you want to come?
They were pretty much at the highest heights of their career. This is a duo that was coming in that wasn't just considered the best in Europe, it was considered one of the best in the entire world. So I think for everyone, the expectation was when you see this big time signing, Zven is going to come over to the LCS and immediately just dominate, that he's going to be, at, if not the top of the league immediately.
I also wanted to try something new anyways, and I thought TSM at the time were sort of the same as EU's G2. They were winning every single title domestically. They were dominating everyone. I thought, at worst case, I'll try something new.
How did it actually go in 2018?
It didn't go so well in 2018. We finished, I think, 5th, 6th in spring. And then we lost in the finals at the Gauntlet to C9, I think 3-0 actually. That was a little painful.
So not great, let's say.
Yeah, not great, yeah. It's putting it mildly, I'd say. I had like no expectations at all of 2019. I remember when going in 2019, I was thinking of it like sort of a just get it over with year. I wanted to leave TSM and NA for good that year, but TSM didn't let me. And then the only reason I came there in the first place was as a Mithi, because we were a duo at the time. And then they removed the one thing that I came there for, right? So it was a really bad mix, so I was in a really bad spot. I kind of wanted the year to just get it over with. Then when we actually started winning games in spring and we actually made the finals, I was like, wow, okay, we actually can win.
Thank you, St. Louis! What an epic matchup this is going to be. Live here in the arena with the energy of this crowd.
I think for us, there was a lot of pressure heading into this finals. TL had just won back-to-back finals, and that was without me. So they made a roster change thinking that this would make the team better. When I had played on C9 for basically my whole career, and I always thought I was the best, and I was never able to win anything. So I was like, I have to make a change somewhere. The main thing that drew me to Team Liquid was Doublelift at the time. You know, he was the player. If you wanted to win, you're like, you look at Doublelift and you're like, damn, like if I have this guy on my team, I can win. Early on, like we were the most dominant team from my experience on a team I've ever been on. Like when we first got together, I was like, this is the best team I've been a part of. We were winning every single scrim, and you know, we finished the regular season in first place. So this team was the real deal.
Please welcome Team Liquid and TSM!
The opening ceremony, we walk on stage and everyone gets introduced, you know.
Normally, you would like have top laner versus top laner, ADC versus ADC, support, mid, right? But then for some reason they told us that it was gonna be Bjergsen and Doublelift and me and Jensen, and I was like, well, that's just weird. I feel like some of my teammates were a little bit nervous. They were kind of feeling the heat because some of them hadn't played a final before. So I was like, you know what? I'll just mess with Jensen.
Put your hands together for Jensen and Zven!
Both come out together, and Zven is like twice Jensen's size.
Sven's just like looking down on me. I'm just like, what the hell? This is messed up. Like, what did I do to this guy?
I thought it was hilarious. I
kind of just laughed it off, but it felt a bit disrespectful at the time.
There is obviously some level of disrespect being handed out there in that moment. I mean, was that playing into it at all? Just trying to get in his head a little before the game starts?
No, I wasn't trying to play any like psychological warfare, where normally in the first game, people's first finals are really like tense. You don't say a lot, you're fully focused on your game, only thinking about, oh, there's a lot of fans here today, and you know, this kind of things. So I thought it actually helped. I could feel the energy was different in the team environment, so I thought it was worth it for that only.
I think that bit on stage was pretty fun, but in the opening games, we're hovering Ekko against Jensen, which for anyone that's ever watched the LCS or maybe heard of Jensen in that moment, it's pretty synonymous with pretty infamous moment in his career.
Jensen, a lane-dominant mid-lane player, and LeBlanc, even on the world stage, he has found success with it.
Hovering the Ekko, the diss towards Jensen there.
Why is the hover of Ekko specifically significant to you as a player?
In the final moment of one of my previous finals, I kind of lost the game by dying as Ekko in a pretty bad spot, and kind of just lost the game for my team. So it was very evident that, you know, he wanted to get a mental advantage by hovering Ekko and reminding me of that moment.
You know how I said earlier that the whole thing was meant to be, you know, psychological warfare? This was meant to be psychological warfare.
You gotta love it. Zven is trying to get in the heads.
I was already on a roll at this point, so I felt like just continuing. It's like a hot streak almost, you know? You knock out Jensen on stage, and then you go on Gem Select, you deal it another blow, and then you go double afterwards. It's like a combo, pop, pop, 1-2. So I hovered the champ.
Just like, all right. I mean, is there anything else you want to show me, Zven?
It's pretty ironic what happened afterwards, right?
Let's hear it for game one, and a best of 5 to determine the best team this year.
We win the first 2 games. I'd say like fairly convincingly. I think Jensen plays Heimerdinger in this game, if I'm not mistaken. And we win.
BB's popping off and Bjergsen's doing really well. And Zven's like there, and Smithy's like there. They're fine. But it's like, well, the top half of TSM is winning and ultimately carrying the first 2 games. The bottom half of TL is winning kind of like all 5 games, basically.
In goes Broken Blade!
Game 2, they go for Sonateric, which is like a very good lane. Like, this is not like, oh, we're just gonna play Sonateric. No, this is a good lane, right? You should just play Sonateric sometimes.
I remember calling Broken Blade to TP behind him in the top half of the jungle, and he kills everyone on Aurelia.
I really think the team was good. Just have to do it again. Yeah. Go through mid.
They get rid of the Banshee's Veil on Jensen. He's running away, but that is several now down. Jensen found out on the side, but Broken Blade can't come through. The flashing crescendo on 1.
I remember thinking that we had a really good read on this team,
The re-engage. Who's gonna drop? It's Impact 1-0. Now towards Doublelift. Bleeding on the floor. 2-0. And TSM win yet another one.
That's fucking right. That's right, guys.
They're one game away from returning to their legacy.
No one really expected them to win, and let alone maybe even make the finals, because when you look at the roster and our roster, like, this was supposed to be a quick 3-0 in my head. So when we were down 0-2, I was like, whoa, what's going on? I think we were all still feeling very confident, but in the back of my head, of course, I'm super worried because I'm like, damn, another finals. I haven't won a finals. We're down 0-2. It's going to happen again.
We lose game 3. I think game 3 is the longest game. And then we lose game 4 as well. I think we get stomped early game. And we just kind of like get rolled in game 4.
Team Liquid bring us to game 5, and that one is anyone's game.
We made some adjustments in draft, and we were able to bring it back.
I didn't actually feel the pressure in game 5. I've been in a lot of game 5s, even at that point. Nowadays, I've been in even more game 5s, but when you don't play like good league for a long time, you don't play like big stage, you don't feel that like the energy, you kind of like miss it. You like long for it in a way. It sounds weird. It's like you're a dopamine addict or something, right? But it really is true. Like, you feel good to be back in this position again. So I wasn't feeling any sort of pressure or any, tension. I just felt good. I was like, yeah, let's go, guys. Game 5. I wouldn't have it any other way, right?
Going into game 5, I was like, I just need to play something where I feel like I can be the game changer. So I was playing LeBlanc, which is one of my most comfortable picks. I remember we fell behind, but we had a team comp that was very scaling heavy at the same time. But the early game definitely didn't go the way we wanted it to.
And Doublelift just left alone, and he is gone. An ace for TSM.
For the first time all series, they're winning bot lane. I think they start 3-0 on Drakes. They're actually like winning the lane overall. Fast forward 20 minutes, and TSM is up 6-ish thousand gold. It's time for the first Baron, and it's like, all right, this is how you do it. You finally had a decent look out of your bot lane. Good job, Zven and Smooth. You guys showed up.
TSM so far up, and they can almost walk this one into the championship.
It's funny, like, I remember so many games of like, I have like a replay catalog in here, right? I remember games from like 2015 spring, week 7 game, day 1 against Vitality, playing this champ and fighting on the ramp, right? What builds I had, what runes I had. But this game, I don't even remember half champs in the game.
Well, I'm sure you remember the specific moment in this game we're going to talk about.
It's hard to forget that one, yeah.
What's going on there? Well, like, what happens? How are you even in that spot when that happens?
There's this common saying that for like 80 carries and mid laners, that the more safe you are, the more risk you take, because you think you're safe. So this was just another moment where I think I came out of base the fastest of everyone. We're kind of late to the map, and I'm like, yeah, I have all my sums, I have QSS. So I felt just safe, I felt like doing this is better than not doing it, because I can do it. And it will make them like give up the vision around the pixel bush and the line bush of top side river, which is important for Baron, right? So I thought I should do it. Because what can kill me? Nothing, right? If Skarn comes here, I'll just Q him and then I'll run away. What's he gonna do about it? Ult me? QSS.
QSS is like an item that you buy that basically, at the time especially, you would be able to remove any kind of CC. Let's say someone uses a spell on you, like a stun. You can't do anything, so you just press this button and then you're out. So whenever you play against a champion like Skarner, you call it like QSS stacks, because everyone has to kind of buy that item so they don't get screwed by the ultimate spell. He had like the best possible items, so he was just like taunting the enemy team and just like being super cocky and not caring, and he's like, I can't die, I have like a million escapes.
I think this is time of Predator. He pops Predator, I think, and just eats me. And I'm like, shit. Somehow I don't eat that. I don't dodge it either. So now I'm slowed, and if I get stunned, Kai'Sa will get Plasma, high passive, to ult on me from really far away. So I can kind of see it coming now. I messed up something, I didn't E over the wall or something, or like I didn't play it perfectly. Skarner E's me. I can't use the stun, because then I die to the Skarner ult. And then I'm just dead. Kai'Sa will come flying in. They get Baron. Yeah.
in general, you should probably try to always play toward your limit. Zven's also usually a pretty safe AD carry. That's my recollection of him this entire time as an ADC main. Is like he's usually on the defensive side. So he's usually going to be pretty good at risk assessment, and usually KD is really good as a result, but his stamina is still high because he's very good at the game. And yeah, it's like, well, I have QSS and I'm Ezreal, so yeah, he's going to have a feeling for, hey, how fast does Skarner move? How much can he catch me? And when he's poking Skarner, indeed the Spire hasn't been captured. Once the Spire's captured, big area, ton of move speed, bunch of mana regen, attack speed, whatever. The big thing is the move speed. Now, as soon as you deal damage to Predator turns off. So now he's just on Spire move speed, but the E is a slow, and Spire move speed is a lot of move speed. So he's gonna get caught here.
The thing is that a lot of the time, Skarner can't E a champ like Ezreal. And if he does, he can't attack you to proc it, right? So you feel like there's nothing he can do. And there's something he can do. He will never get in a position to do what he did unless I do what I did.
The question is, can they find those margins? Can they find that opening? So far, TSM has outmaneuvered.
Zven! No Quicksilver Sash! He is down! He is shut down!
What is he doing?
And I remember the call because this was something that was replayed over and over and over and over for years. It was the no Quicksilver Sash from Freak, right? And I'm just like, what is he doing? You know? Because it was just kind of this surreal moment of why is he there, right? What is he doing?
It wasn't really that bad until you see what happens afterwards. It's like them getting Baron. Our comp wasn't outscaling theirs. So at this point, you're supposed to be winning. So I knew this was a massive problem in the game and that we're most likely gonna lose. So I felt like I might have just thrown the whole game away.
I think I ended the whole game here, guys. God.
Do you remember who actually gets the kill in that moment?
Is it Jensen? I didn't actually remember who got the kill, but that's pretty poetic.
Why is it poetic?
Well, I mean, he basically made himself the cartoon villain, right? He was mocking the guy right before the finals, and it's something that you would see written in a show, right? Where finally the hero gets his revenge, in the critical moment. The villain Zven gets what's coming to him, right? After mocking him and making fun of his failings in a game 5. From Jensen's point of view, the kind of antagonist, Zven, got exactly what was coming to him.
We get the pick on him with Skarner, and I guess that's where it really all turns around. It is kind of funny that it's Zven who ends up getting caught out at the Baron, and then again at the Elder fight, he chases. I think he's chasing after Impact, and then I'm there to kill him again. And it's kind of the story of how the series ended.
They want to try to finish this, but Acadian's so low!
Zven is caught and he goes down!
It makes sense from a karma standpoint that it's Jensen who gets to deliver the final blow. The way I was thinking about it was just, it's over and it's my fault. And I couldn't stop thinking that. And for the first time in my whole career, first and last time, I felt not shaking in my hands, but I felt like the feeling you get when your hands are sleeping. Like there's too much blood in your hands, I don't know. And it felt really uncomfortable and I couldn't play properly. When we were in our base losing, it didn't matter at the time, but I remember feeling that way and it never happened again.
It's Zven sitting alone inside his base.
It's lost. Sorry, guys. No, it's not fucking fine, man.
Bjergsen's gonna fall. The rest of his team is gone. Team Liquid tie the record. It's 3 LCS titles in a row.
I kind of believe in the idea of paying it forward. I think it's how people explain it in English, right? Where if you do something good for someone, something good will happen to you. But I never believed in the negative karma. But with that said, I got hit pretty hard. So maybe I do believe in something. It's just really, really ironic.
It's funny now, because we can look back.
It's funny now, yeah. It's funny now because I won a lot of finals afterwards. And my career is good enough that this moment doesn't overshadow all the good stuff. But for some people, like Acadian, who never won a finals afterwards, I always felt bad about it. I didn't really have like the courage, I guess, to look at my teammates. I just sat on the floor. I think I had my knees up, and I was just hands in my head in my hands. And I was just thinking, like, I didn't say anything for like 10 minutes while Reginald was saying his CEO bullshit, you know, like, it's okay, guys, you know, it's not okay at all. And then Bjergsen's talking blah, 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 and I'm like, someone asked me if I had something to say or like how I feel. I'm like, I think the only thing I said was I'm sorry. That's the only words I had.
That is something that he's going to have to kind of carry with him, right? And when you start to realize that weight of responsibility, that it's not just about you, it's not just about, you know, your performance, your results, how you feel, it's about your team and your responsibility to them, how much effort they're putting in, how much time they're putting in, what it means to them in their career and their life. And I think that, you know, even just having that realization shows a level of maturity from Zven. It's about more than just you. It's about the success of the team, and it's about, you know, being greater than kind of the sum of your parts, being able to work together. That's, you know, somewhat of a microcosm of league in general, where, you know, not everyone can be the star in every game, right? In some games you're going to be weak side, some games you're going to have first pick, some games you're going to have last pick, whatever. It's going to be these situations where you have to be willing to kind of take the ups and downs and work together to accomplish the most that you can.
I made fun of Doublelift and Jensen for their moments, but I also know that in these kind of games, there's a lot of other things that happen as well. Because I always had the mindset in my pro career of, if you could have changed the outcome yourself, it's your fault. Which is both a good and a bad mindset to have. But at the same time, it's also okay to not take the whole blame for the whole series, because everyone could have played better in some individual games, right? That's how I coped, at least at the time. I still think to myself sometimes, if I had just played better that one game, we would have won the series, and it would have changed the whole like year for TSM and for me. And I think, honestly, I think if I had won that spring final, I would have been on TSM in 2020. Yeah, that offseason was probably the toughest point in my career of all off seasons. 2 bad years, like I had, especially the way I had 2 bad years, going from winning LC, going to Worlds every year, to 2 years without Worlds, 2 years without winning a final, and the one final you played, you lost. In that way, not a good look. Jack throws me a lifeline as I'm drowning, and I take it. This is the only team of the teams that I had opportunities with that could actually win LCS. And we stomped the whole league. And I felt like that was the thing I needed the most after those 2 years in TSM, those 2 disaster years. It was really important to me to prove to myself that I could do it.
Were you surprised when he role swapped?
I was really surprised when Zven role swapped, honestly, because I think a lot of times when players do role swap, or when they're, you know, changing positions, whether they're retiring or they're going coaching or doing whatever, you can kind of see it coming more in that the player's abilities start to decline a bit, and you can start to see the writing on the wall where maybe, okay, maybe this guy isn't going to be good enough to get a spot in this role anymore, so they're going to try something else, right? Zven was in a situation, though, where he absolutely was still considered one of the top ADCs in the league, and he could have found another team, for sure.
To be honest, I made the swap for competitive reasons. You know, at the time, it was my best chance to win. I didn't think of it like... I kind of just dropped the ego and said, my best chance of winning the LCS in 2022 is by playing support. And my best chance of going to Worlds is also by playing support. I thought support is so easy, so we should win the LCS, right? And we did. There's a point where you're like, winning is just more important than being the one that scores the goals. I don't mind not getting the credit. I've had my time in the spotlight for many, many years. I know my worth. I know what I contribute to this team in this role, whether I'm playing Enchanters or Engage Sports or whatever. I can do both. I know that myself, and I'll show it to people in this split.
If Zven wins, he'll actually go up to 8 titles, which will tie him with Doublelift.
and he's a little bit behind his buddies Perks and Caps, who have 9 titles currently. Where do you think that puts him in conversation with those other players that are talked about all the time?
I think it's tough because when you have won your titles across multiple leagues, people will talk about Doublelift as the LCS GOAT, and they'll talk about Caps and Perks as the LEC GOATs. And so you kind of have to work your way into this middle ground conversation where it's like Western GOAT, which can become really hard to compare. But I think that Zven has absolutely started to cement himself as one of the best Western players of all time. This is a guy that has had an incredible amount of longevity, which is super hard to have at this level, and especially in this game. There's very few players that came into Pro League when Zven did that are still around and competing. And I think that speaks to how much of a professional he is and how good he is. And I think as far as what that 8th title will do, I think it again pushes it to the forefront that he needs to be a part of that conversation. And I think he absolutely is, amongst that crowd. And the fact that C9 is on potentially the best run they've ever had. This would be the 3rd team ever to three-peat. TL, TSM, and now potentially C9. There's no real end in sight here.
We had this infamous mistake in a time where you're supposed to be one of the most dominant players to ever play in the LCS.
Yeah.
And you don't let that define you as a player. In fact, you're going on to potentially win your 8th combined title between the 2 leagues, which puts you in a very rare class of player.
I think these days, a lot of people talk about like the GOATs and who's the best of all time in LCS. And I don't really care too much about that kind of discussion. I just want to look back at my own career, myself, and think that all this was worth it. Because the one thing people don't see a lot of the time is all the things you give up to be a pro player. I'm really far away from my family. I'm a big family guy. It's all that matters to me in the world besides my career. And I'm not seeing them more than 2 months a year for this. You give up the opportunity to like go to high school and like be educated and have friendships the normal way and do things like normal people. So it's really important to me that I make this worth it for me. And I can look back and be like, yeah, this was a good time in my life. Not only personally, but also career-wise. So it's important that I can look back on this legacy and think, yeah, I did good. And I can be proud of what I accomplished. And I think tying for 2nd is a good start. I hope it doesn't end there.